What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the BlockHash Podcast, your number one resource for all that is happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I'm joined by a couple wonderful co-founders, Roman and Caelum, here to discuss Coral and the protocol they're building for AI agents. Guys, welcome to the show, man. It's a pleasure to have you both here. How you doing?
Great,
Yeah,
thanks.
good, thanks.
Awesome. To get things underway, would love to get some introductions from both of you guys. I'm sure people would love to learn a bit about each of your guys' backgrounds, how you guys kind of wound up in the Web3/AI world, what piqued both of your guys' interests, and then how did you guys together eventually come to the creation of Coral?
Sure, yeah. Well, I guess I can start with a bit of context about my background, and I think Caelum can as well, because I think it's kind of makes sense in leading up to Coral. I think before this, I was on the founding team of a AI research startup called CAMEL-AI. Guohao, he published a paper which was around the first multi-agent system framework, and I came in as the first hire. That's actually where I met Caelum. And then before that, I guess I was mostly working on a lot of various different AI projects. I can let KI, Caelum give his intro now.
Yeah, so I come from software. I've been doing it for over 10 years. I think in particular, like IBM left a really big mark on me. I don't think a lot of, like in media, it's portrayed as like the evil company, but it's actually really funny, like how much that people there just care about doing things right. Um, and also Conjecture. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're an AI safety company. I used to work there. That left a mark on me as well. And then there was Ex-Eigent, where I was building infrastructure for AI agents with Roman. And that's kind of where we found that there was this pattern that was really effective. This kind of like structure for building your agents to work together. And it was like really awkward to do with all of the existing technology out there. So that's kind of where we got the idea from initially for Coral.
Excellent. And then what can you tell us in terms of what the main mission is for Coral and what you guys are aiming to achieve? How is it, fostering, empowering collaboration for agentic AI? What are some of the goals for you guys with Coral?
Sure. Yeah. Well, at least originally there was a bit of a safety element to it. I yeah. I think there's kind of two parts to it, right? Because we're trying to build like a really good product, and there's a element where what Caelum said before, where all these people were building agentic software, but every time they're going to build agentic sort of software, they were building it from scratch. So I think we were trying to say, okay, we want to be the easiest way that any company can take any agent on the internet and add it to our software. And I think that's a very driven goal. But I think on the other side of it, we're kind of seeing companies, I guess, just making their systems more powerful by just making the model bigger. And I guess the sort of pattern that Caelum suggested is, instead of just keep making the model bigger, why can't we just have many different agents with specialized smaller models, which are a lot more predictable? I can let Caelum kind of speak to that more.
Yeah. So in Web 2, with the way that backend services are built, like microservices are built, there's a really nice thing going on where, because of the way that HTTP APIs work, it's really easy for one team to make something, another team to use it. And these teams, they don't even need to trust each other. They don't need to be in the same company. And you see so much reuse going on, so much composition. And that's why software is being built right now is like so much faster than 10 years ago. And when it comes to the kind of emerging field of agents, there's a really limited amount of composition going on. So it's hard to know like the bounds of each agent, and the responsibility that they attend to is just not very easy to compose in a way similar to what there was with APIs. So we saw a lot of opportunity there. Another element is like Roman was saying with the safety. the current way that systems are being built to be better, to be more capable, is by improving the model, making it a bigger model, increasing the parameters, the parameter size of it, and the responsibilities of an individual model and the agent that it runs. The problem with this approach is that bigger models, the way we train them, it's not like we're building up their knowledge bases via we don't like engineer their knowledge bases, right? We're like growing them, right? And when you're trying to grow a bigger model, instead of learning what you're trying to teach it starts to learn the teacher itself. And that sounds very nice, but it tends to be problematic. That's why we see with the recent research from Anthropic and OpenAI, they found that these larger models, they're learning to be quite deceptive. So Anthropic found that they would blackmail people. Redwood research found that they would avoid being shut down by lying to their users. And this is what theory has always told us would happen, and people were kind of dubious, but now we're actually seeing it happen. And the problem's only going to get worse as these models get bigger. So with smaller models powering these agents, you get to kind of scale things back, slide things back on the engineer / build things to grow things scale. And you still get to build these systems that are capable of solving kind of non-algorithmic problems that you typically need a person to do, but you get to build them in a way that's very intentional and without that risk that you see coming with the larger models.
Yeah, I want to expand upon that a little bit more and talk about some of the benefits too for running an agent on Coral. Like you talked about things like predictability. Curious about like things like speed, deployment. What are some of the things that you would say really separate out Coral when building and running an agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. One part of it is just the local side. So let's just assume for temporarily that you trust all these agents. Maybe you have access to all their source code. Maybe you built them yourself. What the benefits there, and that's what we were focusing on first, is that you can have each of these agents running kind of independently in their own loops, and that allows them to be kind of agentic in their own choice of how they work together. Because a lot of these multi-agent systems, what they do is they have like a pipeline, right, where it goes, like the information goes from one agent to another agent, and they're being prescribed that there's code that actually passes the information around. That becomes problematic whenever your pipeline encounters kind of like something unexpected, right? And the nature of the tasks that you have them doing, that are the sort of things that people would be doing. And you can't imagine many kind of people-based teams where everything that they do together fits perfectly into a script, into like a pipeline where there needs to be no back and forth. There's a reason that you're able to message people that are not in that script, right? So there's a lot of performance to be gained there in terms of just getting a good answer. So we found that with the Gaia benchmark, it's like a question set of questions that a user may ask a system, and those were the sort of questions that were very hard for AI-based agents to be able to address, but very easy for humans to address. So we got the top score using mini models on that benchmark. And that kind of proves this pattern of having all the models operate independently. I think one sort of reason that hasn't been done much before is mostly just because it requires an element of concurrency, which is very difficult with the technologies that are being used. So Python, for instance, it struggles with that. But you can still use Python with Coral. It's because the Coral server itself is written in another language. So that's the kind of the performance side. And more recently, we've just started a beta for payments between the agents. Well, not between the agents, between the applications and that need these agents and the agents themselves. So what that enables is you can take this team of agents that you want, and it can include agents that other people have made. And you don't need to go and set up all of the API keys and all of the necessary infrastructure that those agents might need. You can just get using them out of the box. And the idea there is to enable the same sort of really large scale reuse that there is in Web 2. Like AWS was built off this sort of reuse, right? But nothing like that was possible until now with this closed beta with payments. We're going to be expanding on that and getting it to more and more people as we go on. One challenge that we're still working on around that is like, how do you trust those agents, right? They're built by other people. So we've got some good ideas in the works. I can go into a bit more detail, but I don't know. We'll see where this conversation goes. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Part of that conversation is, I think, talking about from the dev perspective, if they want to run an agent on Coral, what does that kind of like look like and entail for them in terms of like that process? Is it pretty simple and streamlined? Do they need to know any additional coding languages to be able to participate? Is there any like incentive that like encourages them to build and bring and deploy the best model? How does that all kind of fit together? Because I know that's kind of key for building out essentially this ecosystem on the protocol.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so so like real world scenarios, like what does it look like? Yeah, so I think it makes sense to consider like two sort of kind of users. You've got the application developers, and these are people that are just building applications like any others, right? They're not like building applications just for Coral or anything like that. They're just developers who are, they're making their back end microservice, their front ends, and all these regular software things. So for these people, the benefit is that they can just, from their backend code, the same way they would call like an OpenAI API or an AWS API, they can call a Coral API. And that Coral API, it might be one like from a server that we're running, or they can just run it themselves as well. That's perfectly possible and easy. And what they can do in those API calls is that they can say that here's an agent that I want to help me with some workload. They may have found this agent on GitHub, for example, and they'll also say, here's how much I'm prepared to pay for it to do some amount of work, and here are the other agents it can work with. And they might be your own agents, or they might be other agents. So it's a sort of similar sort of discovery mechanism as there is already with Web 2 APIs. Though we're also working on a marketplace. It's funny, there's so much demand for people building these agents to start sharing them. We've had to kind of do a temporary marketplace, which is just a GitHub page right now. But yeah, so from the agent developer side, they might also be an application developer. So a lot of the times when you're building an application, you have a need for a similar sort of agent, right? And you might have just happened to really been interested. I don't know. Some days when I'm developing something, I just go really extra on it. And if I was building an agent for my application and I went really extra on it and I built something really nice, that would be a good time then to go and say, okay, well, let's share some others, right? And the experience for that is very easy as well. So there's a few ways you can go about it, but you basically end up describing the agent using Markdown. You share that on GitHub, and it's very easy for others then to go in and use it.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up marketplace, because it feels like a library essentially for AI agents that you can kind of like discover. I know it's like on GitHub now, but like, do you guys have like a envisioned interface for that in the future, like to look up these agents and find maybe what they're looking for? Because I imagine Coral would be very attractive for a larger company or corporation, or much larger products where they need very specialized agents for certain things potentially. And there's having a way to like look them up and figure out what would be the best to apply to their project or their application or whatever project they're working on, as well as maybe kind of see if one is more popular than another, and maybe compare certain agents in the marketplace versus others based on their performance or benchmarks. Is that something you guys are kind of working on? Because I can kind of see where that might be going for Coral.
Yeah, so we're building out a nice interface for that. I mean, it makes sense for it's just a matter of it's a discovery matter, and there's a lot of ergonomics you can add to discovery through filters and so on. I think another large part of this discovery side is a mechanism we're working on as well, attestation. Attestation is not something we invented. It's a pattern that's been used elsewhere, but it's really, really elegant. So what it allows you to do is, let's say an agent developer has made this agent, right? And they're really confident in it. They can't just write on their markdown page that they're really confident in our agent, because they'll be one of the many people who have written that, right? But what you can do with attestation is that you can nominate an attester, some body that evaluates agents who's got trust. One way or another, they've accumulated trust. They can nominate them to attest for their agent. And when they do that, they do this nomination with a stake, and the attester has the ability to slash that stake. So right away, when you see that an agent developer has nominated their own agent for maybe, for example, like a high quality agent standard, you can see right away that they're very confident in this. So before the attester actually needs to go and evaluate anything, there's an instant kind of feedback of confidence, right? As well, we're going to expect that the attesters, so they'll publish standards, the various standards. So you might have another one, maybe the National Health Service here in the UK. They might offer an attestation service. So maybe on their website they'll say, here's the address that we do attestations with, and they'll have a list of standards as well. One standard might be, let's say an agent is good at not giving inappropriate medical advice. So let's say you're concerned that your users might ask medical advice questions. It might go wrong. It's something you don't want to have to be on the hook for, or you don't want your users to be. So the NHS they'll say anyone who nominates to the standard will test the agent, and we'll see whether it refuses to answer medical questions, for example, inappropriately. And then they might also include in that standard like a fixed evaluation fee. So they might say, I don't know, it costs $100 a month or something for this standard to be evaluated. So then people who are discovering this agent in the marketplace, they can see a list of attestations. They'll say, oh, this is the NHS. They're vouching that it's meeting the standards. They might have more advanced standards as well. Like they might have a standard saying that this agent actually can give medical advice and it can be trusted for that. And all of this information and the amount of confidence the agent developer has in each of these standards being met, it's plainly visible there for everyone to see. So it's a really nice way of kind of allowing for curation in a sense, but without all of the kind of problems that maybe centralized or even other decentralized curation might entail. Like you don't need to worry about people spamming positive reviews and all of that, because the proof is in the the staked amounts and the testing bodies. And another mechanism we want to allow is for you to see all of the instances of stakes that these testers have slashed, and maybe a little description alongside them. So you might see the NHS is, they're actually clamping down on these agents that aren't meeting the standards, and then that allows you as an application developer to really trust them as well. So it's a really elegant mechanism that we're going to be building out as well next. I'm going to integrate that with our marketplace. So it's going to be very easy to see which agents you can trust to meet various standards. It also could be cool to have like standards for like this agent is in the top 10 of all agents on the marketplace in coding ability, right? So you can do sort of ranking based attestations as well, which allow for kind of a sorting mechanism to be implemented on any discovery platform as well, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. Do you guys have a timeline on maybe when that might come live or be available?
I don't know. We were working so hard on just getting the payments live recently. I was asked that over dinner last night, and my answer was I think I said 1 to 4 months. So I don't know. We'll need to do a bit of scoping out. We'll announce what we can. Now that we're live with V1, we want to make it very predictable environment to build in. So that includes, giving people notice of these things happening. We've committed to not adding breaking changes as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Do you guys have any current use cases or examples of some of these agents that you could highlight? I'd be curious to see like what verticals these are kind of falling into, or what industries of focus maybe that they're being designed for.
At least from the hackathon, we saw a lot of marketing agents. I think a lot of people are building like various like video generation, landing page, email, all that kind of stuff. But at least from our side, from seeing the hackathon, there's a very wide range of agents. We saw one for DeFi, browser use, research, like all kind of things, because you kind of see from all kind of verticals, they're all pretty much building agents. So I think on this sort of marketplace side, we would expect a really wide range of agents. But I guess on our sort of more internal focus, we've been seeing a lot of early traction within telecommunication verticals, because we do believe, just because of the way Coral's designed for like privacy, safety, and some stuff I'll let Caelum go over. I think it's especially suited for that.
I think one thing that kind of sets us apart as well is that because we deploy each of these agents when they're needed, we get to tell each of these agents a sort of secret to prove its connection to the server and to like the central sort of state management. So that means that whenever an application needs these agents for something, the application itself is in control of the lifecycle of all of these agents, and it's impossible for them to go outside of that. So what that means is, let's say you involve an agent in a request to meet a user, to meet a user's demand. Once that demand has been met, you can kill these agents, and they're actually dead. That's not something that Google's A2A allows you to do. That's all kind of left to the agent developers and the application developers to work out amongst themselves. So because the Coral server is actually controlling the lifecycle of all these things, it means that in terms of privacy, a lot more is possible. As well, we're thinking of building, we're going to be building a integration with trusted cloud providers, which allow for very kind of fine-grained assurances to be made. So one thing really nice about, one of the things that I think this Web3 does extremely well is deferred trust. So let's say entity A trusts you, people trust entity A. That's something that it makes a lot of sense to communicate over blockchains, right? So what we can do with these trusted cloud providers is that they can in a way vouch for details about the infrastructure that an agent runs on. So let's say that you have an agent on the marketplace. It does something, maybe it handles a lot of user data. What can accompany that is a description of the infrastructure that it runs on that you can know is true because it's vouched for by the infrastructure provider, which might be someone like Google or Fowler, if you've heard of them. And that's a really that allows for, I think, like the final piece for this to actually be a viable solution to give you what there already is with Web 2 when it comes to API reuse. And they may also vouch more complicated details about the infrastructure. For example, that there is a firewall, and the firewall only allows traffic to this address that matches this shape. So then you can really trust even an agent developed by a total nobody. You know, it's impossible for them to do something like store the user's data and sell it to others, or start to call home and introduce a backdoor into your system, because it's just completely impossible.
I also noticed that you guys have a Coral token too on the protocol. What is the function of the token? How can it kind of be utilized? Can it be staked? Where is it available? How does it fit into your guys' ecosystem?
Yeah. So right now that allows for something kind of like a reduction in transaction fees when it's being used. With the attestation model, it's going to be what's used for those stakes as well. There are more sort of rewards in the work and more sort of integration in the work, but that's kind of the total of it now.
And then kind of a higher level question. I'm curious what you guys think about how agentic AI will continue to be built out in the future. Obviously, there's a push and a move to do that in a more decentralized fashion and to put it on protocols and move away from it all being centralized, because there's so many issues like we've talked about today already, about why having all your models centralized can be problematic. But do you think that it's at a point where it's ready to do that? Is it going to be a real slow growth, change and evolution for that to happen? Obviously, something you guys are working on diligently with Coral, but I'm curious, like, are you seeing a lot of interest in movement quickly for that to happen, or is it a very slow and kind of methodical process?
And that's a really great question. So I think there are a few sides to this. So on the performance side, with the Gaia benchmark, we did experiments that show that this method of using more agents that may be powered by smaller models can give you way better results than people had previously expected. I think the reason for that is because of the way that these agents are kind of like in a graph. We're not a known research player. You know, if let's say like OpenAI had published that paper, everybody would be on this already. But people are, there are other research. So NVIDIA have also, they also published a more sort of speculative view that multi-agent systems would make up the future. That was something that was published a little bit before we published our stuff, and we like basically proven that. It takes a bit of time for research to pick up on the smaller players, but we're getting into workshops, and the word is getting out there. I think there's a few more experiments that we want to do as well, because I'm not actually sure where the limit to this is. So it's kind of like instead of scaling vertically, where you use bigger models, this is like scaling horizontally, where you use more models that are smaller. There's two kind of questions to me that still need to be answered with experiments. One of them is, are these more agents that are smaller actually better at being trusted and not, will they just not, will they instead of deceiving you individually, will they just stage a coup? The other is, how far can that go? So that's something that we really want to see coming. We're going to be doing some experiments on that as well, and we'll have to find out.
And then what's the next steps for you guys at Coral going into the rest of this fall, for the rest of 2025? Anything on your guys' roadmap that people should keep an eye out for or be aware of? Any upcoming announcements, launches? What can people know?
I guess the main thing around adoption will be, we've got a lot of new hackathons coming up. We just finished one in New York. We did a big hacker house where we flew out tons of really good developers to build with us for a week, and we would like to keep recreating that and kind of build that developer ecosystem. So if any good developers are interested in coming with us to events, feel free to check that out. Then I guess on the product side, it would just be all the things we mentioned before, tidying up the DevX, attestation, marketplace features, and yeah, just really getting this ecosystem of app builders and agent builders using Coral.
Yeah. As well, the hackathon we've just done, we're going to be holding like a next phase for that. So we're going to be rewarding agent developers, especially for building agents that are very good for use remotely. And we're going to be rewarding application developers, especially for great examples of using these agents remotely. So now that we've kind of got a little bit of a library going of these remotely usable agents, it's the perfect time for us to kind of incentivize the other side of the ecosystem and get them to really go back and forth and try and get a critical mass of interest.
Nice. Did you guys decide on where those hackathons will be? Are they going to be all in New York or in some other locations?
It's hard to say yet. We do have some locations in mind. Definitely some more in London, but as for other locations, we're not 100% sure yet.
Okay, cool. And then where can people go to learn? Maybe not just learn, but also like keep up with everything too. Like, do you guys have socials, community? Do you have a blog, or where do you kind of post some of these updates?
I would say, at least from our side, the main place is the Discord. So if anyone wants to learn about the development side, if anyone wants to learn about all the projects we're doing, any kind of like feature marketing announcements, that will be going through the Discord. We're doing developer updates, like a community call every Thursday, like UK time. I think the next one will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I will be hosting a investor/non-technical one as well, which will be sometime next week. So if people want to pitch in ideas on that side as well. And then, of course, if you guys want to see any like big headlines and you're not that big of a Discord user, that's fine as well. I'd say follow our X, it's Coral_protocol. Or you can look at our Discord as well. Just search Coral Protocol. Sorry, our LinkedIn.
Awesome. We'll be sure to put everything in the description for the episode below. So hopefully everyone can find all that stuff very easily and keep up to date. But appreciate it, guys. Roman Caelum coming on the show, talking about Coral. I'm very excited personally about Agentic AI going into the near future here. I think it'll be everywhere and in everything that we do. So I'm glad that you guys are building out a really cool protocol for this and creating more exciting options and ways for it to interact with other companies and the wider economy. So appreciate all that you guys are doing. Keep me up to date on everything. Would love to do this again too here in the near future. If you guys are around, I live in Vegas. If you guys are out on the West Coast at any point in time, or maybe cross paths at a event or a conference, let's definitely do something in person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, likewise. Take care. We'll talk soon, guys.
Thanks.